All right, welcome everybody. I'm Diane Conklin. I'm happy to be here with Queer Profits Podcast, also with Complete Marketing Systems, and I am honored, as always, to have a special guest with us this morning. Just as a reminder, here at Queer Profits, we are about three things: inclusion, community, and growth. And so we will include all three of those things, I'm sure, in our interview today. And I'm honored to have Julia Landis, who I've known for actually a lot of years, and I'm now honored to actually call her one of my coaching clients. So I'm excited to be here. Julia, tell us a little bit about kind of what you do and who you are. We'll get started from there.
Thank you. I'm Julia Landis, and I am a life coach and mindset coach to LGBTQ women, plus women and our allies and entrepreneurs. And I help mainly single lesbians with their mindsets and other entrepreneurs that just happen to come my way. Look at what's behind what they're doing in their business, what's going on in their brains. And I focus on three specific things. One, your thoughts. What are you thinking, feeling? How are you showing up? What we call the model. And then I focus on speech. How are you talking about yourself? Is it a want or is it a desire? Is it mine or is it that? And then I talk about habits, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So we establish the habits to move forward and to get what it is we're desiring.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because you know me, I'm going to jump into stuff I agree with and stuff I don't agree with. So let's talk about this concept of how you do anything is how you do everything.
And you know what the scientific word, I just learned it this morning, is ontological, is the scientific word for how you do one thing is how you do everything. Right. And for a long time, I wasn't sure I believed it, but when I started to really look at me, it's, how deep do you get into something? Do you embrace it wholeheartedly, and do you just embrace one thing? Okay. But how do you approach your projects? How do you approach, let's do personal growth. How do you approach your personal growth? And, I'll be transparent. I've got a relationship or not with my sister, and I can be honest and say, I am not ready to deal with it right now, and I'm choosing not to, and it's over here, but I can't ignore it forever. Okay. And we can treat all of our relations, some we're going to deal with and some we're not, but I can't ignore it, because how I show up over here is going to reflect how I show up everywhere.
Don't we all have different priorities? Like, don't we have things that are more important to us and less important to us in our lives and in our businesses and in the world in general? Things that we feel strongly about that we go after whole hog, and things that we don't feel as strongly about that maybe we don't put 100% into.
Well, and that's exactly it. Okay. It's the same thing. I have other priorities and other things that I want to do right now, and if I want to quote unquote put a positive spin on it, or just realistically, we're politically diametrically opposed. Okay. If you use that phrase from Hamilton. And so not having a relationship right now has been kind of a blessing. Don't have to deal. Don't have to deal. But in that not dealing, I got to be honest about why. Alrighty. And that's what I encourage. Let's be honest about why we are, why we're not, what our priorities are. I'm choosing not. And that is in the inclusion space. And to bring that back around, is part of my white privilege, is that I have the option to choose not to deal with my racism. Okay. And not to, all right. Is that a cool thing? No. Okay. My choosing not to? No, that doesn't move me forward, and it certainly doesn't help us break down the systemic racism that's in our country. So bringing that to the inclusion piece and the anti-racism piece, how you deal with one thing is how you deal with everything. Okay, so if I'm going to set something over here on the side, what else am I setting on the side? Because it's just easier, regardless of what priorities are.
And sometimes, though, is it that it's easier? Is that it's a conscious choice to do that?
I think they're tied together. I think we make a conscious choice and we're going to choose easier. Okay, we're going to choose easier. The brain likes to do three things. It likes to, it seeks pleasure, it avoids pain, it expends as little energy as possible. Okay. And we're going to make a conscious choice or not, but a conscious choice. We make it based on easier. There we go. It's just easier.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that we all choose easier. And I love that we can have this conversation, because it's one of those things that, like, I used to say, oh yeah, right. We just take, somebody said that, and so okay, yeah, how you do one thing is how you do everything. I had a coach, a prior coach who used to say that, and then I heard somebody say, really? And so I got to thinking about it a little bit more, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure I 100% agree with that statement, but I love having the conversation, as with everything, right? And
Right.
talk about your views on it versus how we can certainly look at it from a different perspective. So I love that doing that piece. But
Well, the other is that always quote unquote 100% true? Okay, do we do one thing is how we do everything to a degree? Okay, and then what's that degree for each of us? All right, some people it may flow all the way down, other people it may not. I personally found that there are some things I go whole hog into, and then other things I don't. And then that's back to your point, priorities, interest, that type of thing.
right. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and like I said, I love
Yeah.
hearing other people's perspective on those things. So how do you bring that into and I just picked that one thing that you said, but how do you tie all of that into the life coaching that you do, specifically with the queer community, and more specifically with the lesbian aspect of what you're doing?
I tie it in by, starting with the thoughts. When somebody tells me I want something, okay, I want to grow my business, we could get really deep into it really quickly, which is a want is a confirmation of what you don't have in conscious language. A desire is something completely different. Okay. They're on completely energetic different things. I look at what are the thoughts around what you're desiring, what you're saying that you want. What are the thoughts about that? Because there are thoughts about that. Okay. So I know somebody who's got they have a catering business, and then they have an online store, okay, with sauces and jams and all that. And okay. And stating they want to grow that. And then some other ladies stating that they want to grow, whatever it is they're selling out. All right. And we can say that we want to do something, but what are the thoughts behind what we're saying we want to do? Okay. If we're saying we want to grow and I want to increase the number of subscriptions and the people that I have with subscriptions for my product, what are your current thoughts about the people who currently have subscriptions? How are you loving on those people right there? How are you loving on the people that are currently there? And then we look at those thoughts. What do you think are your goals? Who do you have to become in order to serve, okay, more people? What needs to change about your business? What needs to change about your mindset? And so that's how I kind of pull it all in. We look at what's going on behind your thoughts about what it is that you actually want. Then we look at how you're talking about it. Okay. How is it that you're speaking about what it is that you're saying that you want? And then what habits are you showing up? Okay. One of the things I had to look at is I wasn't showing up. Alrighty. So I've started showing up, and showing up is fun. Okay. And now I get to refine how I show up so that I can better serve, and the habits that go with all that. So we look at your thoughts, we look at what you're saying about it. Okay. And then we look at what you're doing. And that's how I kind of pull it all in.
And so in all of that, is the hardest thing the mindset, or is the hardest thing getting people to take the action and changing what they're doing or how they're showing up?
I think it's one or the other. I think it's taking action through the drama that's going on in your brain. Okay. It's realizing, wait a second, this is what I'm thinking. Okay. It's realizing that what you're thinking drives what you're feeling, that we take an action or not every single time. We do not take any action ever in our life except for a feeling. a feeling that we want to feel or a feeling that we don't want to feel. So what is it that you need to think so that you feel and then take action on that? And it happens in the discomfort. Okay, bravery and courage, if you're going to do something for the first time, they're uncomfortable emotions. We talk about them, they're sexy, they're fabulous. Oh my God, she's so brave. Okay, at no point is bravery comfortable. At no point is bravery comfortable. So to answer your question, literally, it's two sides of the same coin. You have to think about what it is that you're going to do, know what you're feeling, but then take the action anyway. Yeah, this is uncomfortable. I've got to get out there and introduce myself to people. Okay, whether it's you're introducing your business or you're going to introduce yourself to somebody that you're interested in a romantic way or for a new friendship, either way, there is a level of discomfort, and we have to choose to move through the level of discomfort. And it's called, hashtag messy middle. Hashtag
And it's the risk and the vulnerability, right? That makes that, that makes us maybe not want to do that or pull back from that. And so how do you help people overcome, let's forget about the risk part right now, because I mean, if we talk strictly about vulnerability, that's gonna include it anyway. So that's a big word, right? Vulnerability and being vulnerable. And I love all of Brene Brown's stuff, and I've read most of her, I think all of her stuff, but she talks a lot about this. But I think especially because you're dealing with the lesbian part of our community, I think there are a lot of things that probably come up with this. And I think being vulnerable is something that may be more difficult for some of us, based on the fact that, it's vulnerable anyway, right? As a marginalized community to be who you are, and now to put yourself out there even more. So how do you help people overcome that piece of, I don't want to be vulnerable, or I've grown up my whole life, being told don't cry and be strong and all of those things. And then to be able to change that and say, okay, right, here it is. Here's my heart on the sleeve.
Yeah. The first thing that came up is with baby steps. Okay. We practice just like with anything else. We practice within a coaching session in a safe space. One of the things is holding space for ourselves. And I'm talking about on Reflections in a Morning Walk right now is the self-coaching piece. It's teaching, and this is how I do it, is I teach people how to self-coach. Because the whole process and the whole purpose of self-coaching is to better and deepen our relationship with ourselves. Okay. And that's how I teach in the quote unquote, the vulnerability piece, as Brene would said, or moving into vulnerability. In official terms, I call it holding space for ourselves. Unofficially terms, it's called having your own back. Alrighty. It's creating a safe space within ourselves and being vulnerable within and learning that. And then slowly but surely taking that on the road. And you doing that with smaller spaces and teaching folks how to practice with good friends and speaking up and understanding that discomfort comes with it. Okay. That nothing has gone wrong. Everything continues to go as it should be. Okay. As it should. Alrighty. And that feeling the feelings of discomfort is part of living a full life. Okay. It's 50-50. Okay. We're going to have things that feel great. We're going to have things that don't. Okay. And the ones that aren't going to last forever. And the ones, even though our brain is going to try and tell us they should, the ones that don't last forever either. Okay. But our brain wants to tell us we're supposed to feel good all the time. I think there's a group of folks, I don't want to call them psychologists, but, positive psychology, et cetera, that wait a second, or let me add to that, the press and, some of popular culture, that our whole goal is to feel good all the time. Well, it's not. Life's 50-50. So we learn to move through and into vulnerability by spending time and becoming vulnerable with ourselves and looking at and becoming better friends and loving and having our own back. All right. And then we're able to gradually move forward and do that with others.
So what I hear you saying is you have to get comfortable with being with the discomfort.
Yeah. Okay. And, to borrow another term from someone else, we get to lean in. And the first is the more we lean in. I learned a few years ago the phrase, is telling the universe, okay, there's a lesson here. I'm signing up. I'm leaning in. Literally terms that when I'm moving through something that I just, usually it's in my car. There's a lot of blue air around because I've had things to say. Okay. But it's all right. I'm signing up for this lesson. Okay. And leaning in to that feeling. A little science on feelings. An emotion is just a vibration in our body. And we use the term emotion and feelings interchangeably. And a woman named Carol Dweck back in the early 90s wrote the first book on mindset. And also, an emotion lasts no more than 90 seconds. If you're feeling a feeling, okay, and kind of park your brain. And what I mean by that is we don't attach to other thoughts that are going to come through based on what you're feeling. It's no more than 90 seconds. Okay. And I used to be an Orange Theory fanatic. And I thought to myself, okay, I can do a push pace. I can be uncomfortable for 90 seconds. Let's look at, where else have I been uncomfortable for 90 seconds? How long is that? Okay. We've all been put on hold on a phone for 90 seconds. We know what that feels like. So if we sit with the vibration in our body, okay, and go, ooh, this is what anxiety feels. It's in my chest. Okay. And it's buzzing and it's right here. And let me lean in and feel that. It's literally like this wave. You feel it, you feel it, you feel it, you feel it, and then it rolls. Particularly if we feel it and we remain curious about it, we remain calm and kind and loving. It's when we begin to think, I'm not supposed to feel that. Okay. Or this is uncomfortable. That's when we cause our own stuff.
When we judge it, right?
We judge it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where we get into, that's where we're not having our own back. If we remain in curiosity and love, oh, this is what this feels like. So interesting. So interesting.
One of my favorite Peloton instructors says, if you can be curious instead of judging things, that's where the power comes. And I love that's, yeah. I botched the quote, I'm sure, but that's essentially what she says. And it's interesting. You talk about this, the feeling and the emotion being there for 90 seconds. And yet think about, I'm sitting here thinking about how we extend those times, right? Especially with the negative feelings, right? With the shame, with the negative self-talk, with the, I'm so stupid. How did you let that happen again? I'm never going to love, whatever those things are, right? I mean, we could go on, right? But we expand those and sit in those for hours, days, months, years. We've all done it, right?
Right.
In a relationship or a business failure or whatever it is. And yet the positive feelings, right? The love, the euphoric falling in love, the positive emotion of winning something or having a positive, right? We shorten those, right? We take that 90 seconds and I call it chasing the carrot in business, right? We take that 90 seconds and we look at it and we go, oh, well, on to the next thing, right? And so we shorten those and we lengthen the things that don't work for us, which I think are the things that we shouldn't be concentrating on in order to move forward are the things that we probably focus on. So, and isn't it interesting that all happens in what my dad would call the most important 6 inches, right? This piece between your ears.
Correct. It's the word that came up as you were saying that, Diane, is marinate, and us learning to marinate in the good and enjoying that and actually being with it for a period of time before we go, oh, achieve that goal. Well, then let me push it out a little more instead of going, okay, let me just be with this. This is amazing. I have done this.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And celebrating it. Okay. And then as a separate begin again, okay, going to the next place, stopping, marinating in the good, and then choosing, okay, I've marinated here for a little bit. I'm ready to go again. And you're right. We blur all of that.
Yeah.
Blur it. Yeah.
It's also interesting. I use the lean in term a lot with people when I'm trying to get them, to grow in their business and to move forward. And what's interesting to me is I think we have this tendency, and we're taught, think about the words that we use, right? Let's crush it. Let's kill it. Let's, it's that piece of always driving, always pounding, always going through the wall, always, and there's this piece of that creates in and of itself this tension, inside of you. It creates this feeling of, oh my gosh, if I'm not crushing it, what's happening, right? And so I often tell people there's ways other than, and look, this is the pot calling the kettle black, right? I mean, you're looking at the ultimate bull in the china shop right here, right? It's like, keep going, go, push. But, there's always a way under or over or around or a different door, right? But I talk about this concept of leaning in with, like, imagine, in life, in business, whatever you're doing, there's wind, right? There's this constant wind and pressure sort of coming at you, right? Not just from the front, but from all sides. And instead of feeling like you have to run through it, like a friend of mine who hasn't worked out in probably 2 years sent me a text this morning and said she did a 15K with a friend this weekend and she's sore everywhere. I'm like, duh. What did you expect, right?
Okay, so that the expectation that she wouldn't be sore,
right? Because you ran through it instead of leaning into it and training and starting with a 5K, right? It's in life and in our business. It's how do you, instead of taking that concept of cramming it and running through it and getting it done, how do you just lean in? How do you just take one small step and then the next small step so that you don't develop all that pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to get this done and I have to get it done right now. And even worse, it has to be done in the next 5 minutes. When in fact, it probably doesn't.
I have lots of things I wrote down. So the 3 words that I use that keep me from going zzz and pushing and going harsh. All right, because a lot of us feel like if we're not going to get anything done unless we force ourselves, we're not going to get anything done unless there's this new word out there called efforting. Okay. But mine are, am I being kind? And this is to me, am I being calm? Am I being gentle? All right. And that we get so much further, okay, in our relationship with ourselves and in our businesses when we're kind, when we're calm, and when we're gentle. The other is what I'm doing bringing me joy? Okay. Is what I'm doing, is how I'm marketing bringing me joy? Am I loving on my people? Okay. Because I don't have to go find new people. I got to love on the ones I got right here. Like I've got a lot of people kind of, I don't want to call it sniffing around, but I do. And so if I love on them, okay, other people are going to go, wait a second, that looks good over there. Let me go check that out because they're getting all loved on. So that's how I look at it. Am I having fun at it? How do we do that? Is there a way that I can do this that's actually fun and that feels good? What do I need to think? And that goes back to, what are you thinking that's driving this hard? I got to go if I don't get it done. Because there's a different belief back there. Which I would say is confidence in yourself, is willing to trust. Am I willing to trust myself to get it done without having to force, without having to effort? And the thought behind forcing and efforting. Okay, there's
it's interesting, right? When you think about it, I mean, and in my brain comes up this, and I'll just say who it is, because if you follow this person on Instagram or anywhere else, you see it, right? Glennon Doyle. Whose book Untamed, right, says all the time, we can do hard things. And I think to myself, yeah, but it doesn't have to be hard, right? I actually own the domain. It doesn't have to be hard.com.
Right.
I haven't done anything with it, but that's, I think, this piece of, giving yourself permission to have fun, right? To have fun in your business, to have fun in your life. And A few years ago, I was sitting, this is many years ago now, but probably 10. I always, time gets away from you, but I was sitting with a one-on-one with the coach I was working with at the time, with my former partner and business partner and life partner. And she looked at me and she said, Diane, what do you do for fun? And my immediate reaction, because it wasn't a response, it was a reaction, right? My immediate reaction was, well, my business is fun. And it is. I love what I do, right? And yet her point was, what are you doing other than, right? And I physically had to sit and think before I could say to her and respond, right? Before I could then respond with an answer of, what do you do for fun, Diane? And I think that moment for me was one of those sort of life altering, I won't say it was a life changing, but it was a life altering moment from the perspective of, yeah, what are you doing for fun? Right? Because you can't work all the time. You can't be hammering it, hustling, efforting. You can't be doing that all the time and have your business and your life grow at any optimal level. And so this whole idea of fun, I think, was so contrary to my view of work, right? I grew up on a 75-acre farm. My dad farmed 450 acres. He always worked at least a full-time job and sometimes had a part-time job. And so it was this idea that hard work is ingrained in me, right? I mean, that's just part of like who I am at my core. And so to have to take some time to really think about that was a different experience for me.
Mm-hmm. I am very familiar with Glennon Doyle, and while I haven't read as much of her, I do follow her out online, and I follow, Abby Wambach, her wife, also, and that we can do hard things. And I love your question. Why does it have to be hard? And I'm going to go get the domain. It can be easy. Okay. Right.
Maybe it even should be easy.
Yeah, it could. It can be easy. Yes. And I think you're right. It's the space to have fun. And when we step completely out of our businesses and I am also blessed and work for Centerlink, the community of LGBTQ centers. We're the association of gay and lesbian community centers all around the world, the international association of. And when I step away from both Centerlink and when I step away from Julia Landis coaching and just go have fun, alrighty, I come back refreshed. There's space. Okay. What I sit down to is fun. The ideas that I have, what I accomplish, everything is much more fun. Way much more fun. I wrote down when you were talking that is it's the space to have fun. And it starts with the question that you said, what do you do to have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a new semi sort of obsession called pickleball. Okay. And that, yeah. And way fun and being out there and watching the improvement. And it has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you know this, and I haven't shared this with a lot of people, but you know that I'm dating exclusively somebody now, and it was interesting when I started to tell my friends, and it's been a long 4 years for me, a long dry 4 years for me, and so one of the things that, almost without exception, my friends all said to me was, Diane, have fun, and I think part of that came from this place of, it took me so long to sort of get to the point where I felt like I could date again and that I was ready to date again. And they've watched me sort of go through this process, probably most of them twice now, after having lost a long-term relationship. And then the last one being almost 5 years. And the last one was hard. In a lot of ways, being in it, but this piece of just have fun, Diane, just and knowing that people want that for you brings a whole different level of like, wow. Because again, when 4 or 5 people said it like back to back to back to me, I was like, okay, they see me, and right. People do see you, whether you think they do or not, or whether you want them to or not, they certainly do.
So. Yes. And the other thought that came up as you were saying that is God, the universe, however you say it, wanted to make sure you got the point.
Well, I got it. Trust me.
Okay, because usually, I'm the type that if I hear the same thing twice in a row from two different people who don't know each other at all, I'm like, okay, all right, I need to either be taking action, looking for this, not doing that, blah 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 blah. Okay, and you go, okay, just have fun.
Right. Well, it's funny because the same coach who asked me what I did for fun says one of her things is when I hear it or I hear it 3 times, then I know I need to pay attention, right? And I always laughed and said, yeah, for me, I have to get slapped upside of the head with a 2x4 33 times before it gets my attention. So I'm better than I used to be. But
yes, yeah. I went to a conference Oprah did. This has been years and years ago, and she spoke on Friday night, and it was all day Saturday too. And when she talked about the universe getting our attention, she had this metronome, with the balls,
yeah,
back and forth, and it could be get your attention with this ball stuff, like tap on the shoulder, hey, look at me. All right, so for you, 5 times, have fun, okay. And then if we don't pay attention, then the ball, bam, bam, I don't want to call it the repercussions, but that our attention will be, okay, we will be forced to pay attention.
Yeah, right? Well, trust me, I'm having fun now. So
yes. The other, Diane, that came up as you were saying that, not just have fun, relationships can be easy.
Yeah, exactly.
They can be easy.
Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting. Good. Well, I want to shift gears for a little bit. We've got a few minutes left here, and there's a couple questions that I try to always ask, and I certainly want to get your take on this. So tell me what the best business advice is that you've ever received or that you want to give.
Don't quit. Don't quit. And here's what quitting looks like. Quitting looks like starting and stopping instead of having momentum begin to work for you because you just keep showing up, or you keep doing the thing, or you keep trying what you need, what if something isn't working, you just keep failing, because every time you fail forward. Quitting is the big failure.
Right.
Okay. So what, that only 3 people showed up for your program? So what, you've had 3 coffees and you're really not interested in any of the, in those women. Okay. You just keep going. Okay. Another one down. Check mark. All righty. And then you keep moving, but don't quit.
Yeah. And, I just want to add to that. I think the other piece is that people say, well, okay, I did this and it didn't work. And so what do I do now? Well, the part to me of not quitting is that you're at a crossroad, right? So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to move forward somehow, but you don't necessarily continue moving forward in that exact same vein. As a matter of fact, that would almost be stupid, right? It would be silly, whatever word you want to use. That's just me being me. But right. So maybe you have to take a fork, right? You take a fork to the right, or you take a fork to the left. You take a jog, and sometimes it's even okay to take a pause and to reevaluate and to think about what is it, how do I get where I want to go? This didn't work. What do I do next? It's that, I call it strategy in business, right? But you haven't stopped, you haven't quit. And I think that's the important part of, life in business isn't a straight line. No. I love the graphic of people think that business goes, from here to here. Well, it does, but it doesn't go in that straight line that most people think. It goes like this.
Correct. It for lack of a better thing, it's similar to grief. Okay. Yeah. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said there are 6 stages or whatever it is, the 5 stages. Okay. But never once did she say they were linear.
Right. Right.
Because you've been in one. Okay. Doesn't mean you're going to the next one, or doesn't mean that you've gotten to the next one that you're not going to go back and experience one of those 2 that you've already moved through.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same with business. I think it's, a good word that came up, and I think you said it, is if something happens and it fails, well, we evaluate. Okay, here's what worked of that. Here's what didn't. What didn't I do? What technically didn't work? Okay, and it's the whole evaluation. All right. All right. And you're right. That could be a pause as you continue to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love it. Yeah. Don't quit. I love that piece because you never know, right? When the next hit of the hammer, when the next marketing piece, when the next relationship, when the next coffee, when the next whatever is the one. And so that's the thing I think for me that keeps me going is I'm always afraid what if the next step, is the one that that opens up and brings the things that I want. So what do you think are the biggest issues right now facing the queer community?
I would say I'm coming at this from two places, not even two places. It's all the same place. I've thought about this since you emailed this question, had quite a couple of conversations in the car with myself over this. And I'm going to speak from where I sit in my Centerlink chair as the Director of Operations and Member Relations. And I think right now, one of the biggest issues that we have as a community and that we experience as a community is the patchwork of laws in our country regarding inclusion, regarding INDA, okay, the in non-discrimination now, it is the discrimination and is the patchwork of laws regarding the rights and the civil rights of LGBTQ people. Okay. So we have the Florida Human Rights Commission. They just announced last week, Wednesday or Thursday, that they would enforce Bostock versus Clayton County, which was the law that says that you can't discriminate about sex, and sex includes that includes sexual orientation and gender identity. All right. So here in the state of Florida, that ruling will be enforced. Okay. So when it comes to being able to rent someplace, when it be able to come to getting services, the whole night, in a hospital, wherever, okay, they cannot discriminate against you because you're gay or because of your perceived sexual orientation, gender identity. And the fact that some states are going to choose differently or could possibly choose differently, and that there's not one all-encompassing law, okay? And I'm going to take it back to, for understanding purposes, when there was gay marriage in some states and there wasn't in others, okay? So you got married in Massachusetts and then you moved to Texas. Texas wasn't going to honor, okay, the full faith and credit of the, what is it, the Fourth Amendment, all right? So that's the biggest thing that we see. I get lots of questions, and it's because it's different for somebody in Mississippi than it is in Georgia, and it's different for somebody in Georgia than it is in Florida, and it's totally different than it is in Massachusetts and California and places like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big piece.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Is that the consistency of, can we just be, can we just have equality? Can we just have equity, as a people, as part of the United States of America?
Correct.
Because after all, the difference is minimal, in my estimation. It's that piece of, can we be united? And that's a bigger question than certainly I'm qualified to answer. And certainly any of our leaders to this point are qualified to answer. So
it's their willingness to step out,
right,
become qualified, or to take it on. The next big thing that's coming is a case out of Pennsylvania that's going before the Supreme Court regarding adoption and federal money.
Yeah.
And can you discriminate against gay people with federal money? It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. And in some aspects, I thought we were already through that. I thought we had a ruling at the federal level on that. So it's all very interesting. And I'm certainly not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV, and I don't understand all of the
likewise
stuff, but
yes. I blessings. I have access to a National Community Center policy manager who's right on a lot of this. Okay. And, and that's exactly, it's yeah, you're right. Can you take the ruling though with Bostock versus Clayton County, and can that be applied? And that was with, the Civil Rights Law of 1964 in Title VII.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on sex.
Yeah.
So, right.
It's an interesting time, and it's going to be interesting with the new administration in place to see, what happens. I certainly am more looking forward and I'm not coming up with the word now, but you know, I have hope. I guess I'm more hopeful. That's the word. Now that I've been, you know, in a long time. So we'll see how things work out. So Julia, this has been great. I want to thank you for your time. And can you give everybody your contact information if they want to get in touch with you or reach out?
Yes, I'm on Instagram at Julia A. Landis. Facebook, Julia A. Landis, the same thing. And Julia Landis website. Would love to talk with you, hear from folks, interact, come be part of the community. I do reflections on a morning walk every day. It shows up both on Instagram. Challenge myself to 100 days of walks. And so, I was walking anyway, and I was like, okay, let's do something with this.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
usually where I have some of my best ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're very good. They're very insightful. So good. Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Don't forget about the Facebook group. It's Queer Prophets on Facebook, as well as there's a Queer Prophets podcast group or page on Facebook. As always, please feel free to go to queerprophets.com, where I have a free report there, or actually an audio, video, or report. You get to choose how you want it. The 3 keys to growing your business fast, getting more clients, and making more money. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Queer Prophets podcast. Julia, again, thank you so much. If you guys have questions, have topics that you want to hear, reach out, let us know. If you've enjoyed this, I would love a review. And as always, we will be back next time with something amazing, I hope. And until then, make it a great day. And remember, here at Queer Prophets, we are about those 3 things: inclusion, community, and growth. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your day. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Diane Conklin. Sweet.